Arguably the main character in the Song of Ice and Fire series, Jon Snow, is currently dead. Because of the TV show, everyone believes he'll be coming back, but Jon Snow needs to stay dead in the Winds of Winter.
I agree. I'm not that interested in what's happening up at the wall. I'm not interested in what's happening beyond the wall. I'm much more interested in what's happening down south, specifically in the book universe compared to the show universe. If Jon Snow lives, like you said, he is arguably, and I think pretty definitively, the main character. As long as he is alive, there's going to be a disproportionate amount of attention placed on him and his surrounding plot. So I know the White Walkers and the others, whatever, seem like this giant conflict and like they are the endgame boss, and I'm actually okay with them being the endgame boss, but as long as Jon Snow lives, they're going to be woven and integral to this whole thing. If Jon Snow suddenly dies, not only is that another Red Wedding moment, like a real death, right? If he stays dead, that's another one of those like unbelievable, I had no idea this was coming moment, but it also really makes you question now, like I have no idea how the hell they're going to stop the White Walkers if they do end up getting south of the wall via Euron or whatever.
It does feel like if Jon Snow comes back and kind of hits similar beats like we saw within Game of Thrones, it'll feel like we've kind of seen this already. Even though it's a SparkNote version of it, it's the made-for-TV event of the books where you're like, oh yeah, I can kind of see how this resembles the source material, but there's a lot more details in the books, but still, I don't know, it doesn't feel like it has that big of an impact anymore. And like you said, I wanted to see a Red Wedding-like event happen within Game of Thrones or the Song of Ice and Fire series later on. Jon's death should feel like that, but we all are like, oh no, don't you remember what Melisandre saw? She saw, a man turning into a wolf and back to a man, and when she was looking for Azor Ahai, she saw was Jon Snow. It's like everyone's just immediately thinking Jon is going to come back, and is it even that big of a surprise now? And what does he serve for the story overall? Like, what do we really need to see out of him arc-wise that's going to be satisfying for him to complete that could not be done by either Sansa / Arya, well, maybe not Arya, but like Rickon could be propped up into the King of the North like surrogate, and then we just get some other person who's a good fighter or leader alongside him, and it basically takes up that role. Like, what do you really need to see Jon do in his arc that you feel satisfied by? Because I don't think at any point we want to see him be a ruler long term, and if anything, if it's true, Jon just goes up north after everything. He goes back to like the wildlings. I don't know. I just keep him dead. Just leave him dead.
Jon should not be king. I couldn't agree more with that. He shouldn't be in any place of leadership. And you know what I did like about the Game of Thrones version? The one thing I did like is that he went back up north and he was like a member of the Night's Watch. I don't like the circumstances by which he went up there. And in the show, it's completely pointless for him to be up there because what is he defending against now? The wildlings are all on good terms with everybody. What's the point of the wall? There's not even a wall. What's he doing? Where is he? Are they erecting a castle where the wall once stood? And then that's where he is? Is it like an eighth kingdom now? Like the logistics of that are total nonsense. But I do like the idea that Jon's place is not in a place of, leadership, despite him probably actually being R plus L equals J, right? Like the actual true heir to the throne. Right. Even though he is probably that heir to the throne, I like that is a little bit of a subversion. So there is a way you could do it. You could bring him back maybe even later and then have him take up some pivotal role in the battle against the White Walkers. But the thing that I'm more interested in overall, one is the Euron plot. I think the Euron plot is pretty interesting because he's like the first kind of I don't want to say one-dimensional villain, but like a traditional Palpatine-esque, like plotting, you don't know everything about his past. He's just straight up evil for seemingly no reason, right? Even though that's usually not a good thing. In a universe like this where there's so many complex characters, it's kind of a breath of fresh air in a way. So I'm very interested in the Euron plot. I'm very interested in Littlefinger, and I'm very interested in, most importantly, young Griff, Aegon the Sixth, the true heir to the throne, and I would love to see a conflict between Dany and him. We talk about it in a ton of videos. He takes a dragon, Euron takes a dragon, Dany takes a dragon, and you have a much more political climax to the story, right? Rather than like this supernatural one that happens up north. I think that is much, much more interesting. It's more compelling. That's what I cared about in the show, and there's really no good way to do it because if you leave the whole White Walker conflict active, then it's like you're still thinking about it in the background while the political stuff is going on, which would happen here as well. But what's even worse is what the show did, took out the White Walkers first, which we all assumed was going to be the end game thing. And then they just took it out and dealt with the political stuff in a terrible way. And it wasn't even Jon Snow, the prodigal son, to take out the Night King. So that was terrible. I have some ideas of what I would rather see in terms of like a Jon, either not resurrection at all or a resurrection. But what do you think of that first?
No, I agree. I'm way more interested in other plot lines, mostly because we have not seen how they play out, and how they're going to play out from the TV show versus the books is completely different. So, like you said, the Euron, the young Griff, how Dany comes over and how she's even welcomed into not King's Landing, but Westeros in general. Those parts are way more interesting to me than Up the Wall, because again, the stuff we saw up the wall is going to be very similar to how we saw it in the TV show, beat by beat. The stuff down there, completely brand new. I have no idea what's going to happen, especially even with Dorne. Like, we don't have the nasty little sand snakes down there. We got our little boy Darkstar down there, being a little stinker bingus.
Large nutted. He's large.
Listen, we got to do in defense of Darkstar video, right?
Even in defense of him, it's more like a hype video, right? Like, people think of so little of him for no reason. I don't even understand what the hate comes from in terms of, like, because people don't just attack his character, they attack like his abilities, and they say he's like a little bitch and stuff like that. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Like, I understand he's not Arthur Dayne, but I mean, maybe he is, maybe he could be, realize his full potential. Why don't you give him a chance? Give this guy a chance. Take a chance on Darkstar like we do.
You were saying something earlier about, Jon Snow might have the rights or the heir to, whether it's Winterfell with Robb Stark or potentially King's Landing with his the alleged lineage of Lyanna and Rhaegar, right? But Jon uses the loophole of, I died, so I don't have duty. I don't have the duty to the Watch anymore. But if you lose your duty when you die, don't you also lose your rights as well? Like, if you die, it should pass on to the next person. And when you come back, you either inherit your rights or you don't, but you should also inherit your duty or you don't, right?
Oh, exactly. He's bending those rules to suit his needs, and it's disgusting, frankly. This is a slimy Jon coming out of the woodwork. It's like, when it's convenient for him, he'll follow the rules. When it's inconvenient, he won't. This goes back to him having sex with Ygritte, beyond the wall. Or it's like,
right.
Technically, I didn't do it. I just used my mouth. Or like, it was just soaking, guys. I converted to Mormonism. It's whatever. I didn't move, I swear. Sam,
do we want Jon back? Do we want him back? He's an idiot. The reason why he was killed is because he kept everything so close to the vest, failed to communicate to anybody about his plans, and then at every opportunity he could have made the right decision to head down south with Stannis. He picks the worst time after he gets his pink letter that says, like, hey, your best chance of taking the north just died. Also, I have your sister Nana and her boo-boo. And then Jon's like, ooh, I'm going to head down. Jon Snow feels like he's playing Deal or No Deal, and all the six-figure cases have been taken, and now he's just, like, running out. He's like, all right, open the case. Like, dude, this is not funny anymore.
He's literally his whole family's telling him he should take the deal, and he refused to take the deal. And that stupid bitch up in the upstairs where you can't even see her identity, right? She's like that just silhouette.
Her? The banker, dude.
I've watched more recent episodes. It's a woman. Spoiler alert. My wife was watching the other day. I was like, what the hell is that? The banker's a woman? Like, what year is this? Unfortunately, it's 2025, right? But can I tell you an ideal situation for me, what I would like to see with a Jon?
Let me lay down a towel first.
Yeah, lay it down.
So you can tell me.
This is what I would want to see. I would want to see some vague, whatever, bullshit thing that we're talking about, political situation going down south. I would love to see young Griff come out on top. I highly doubt Nipple Boy will let that happen. I think Dany's probably going to be the one to win down there or whatever. But
sure,
we've kind of talked about it before. I would like to see a multi-stage fight where the White Walkers, after the political stuff, because you can't just ignore the others, right? I would like to see the others pierce the wall in some way. Maybe it's Euron, maybe it's whatever. A compelling way to not bring Jon back like how we think he is, and bring him back in a different way would be to have him be resurrected as basically a white when the White Walkers march on the wall, and have it be pretty close to now, I guess, so that his body's not decaying. Or maybe he could just stay frozen up there or something. Maybe the Night's Watch is going to disrespect the hell out of it. Just take it, one of them grabs him by the arms, the other one grabs him by the feet, and they do that like, 1, 2, 3, yeah. Like the heave-ho, right? Jump rope style. Way off the wall. He's frozen. His body's not going to decay a ton. So they resurrect him and he becomes a white. And then maybe you could use some kind of a magic later on. Maybe Catelyn will see him and be like, I know that guy. Give him the last kiss. And it kind of awakens the old Jon energy. And then we have this amazing like Grey King persona that you and me always talk about. Because no matter what, if Jon comes back, that's the only way it should happen. But anyway, you could then have Jon as basically an other at this point. Basically sabotaging the ranks from within, or working against him, maybe even traveling beyond the wall as the White Walker army travels south, and he could find like the source of their power, something like that. I just don't want to see Jon come back as a human at any point during the political intrigue down south. I don't want to waste any time with it at all. I don't want this prodigal, good-natured boy who can do no wrong. He just wants what's best for everybody. That's not compelling. And God help me if I see a Jon Snow-Dany relationship in the book.
No, I don't like that either. Yeah, something I think we can both agree on, and it's highly theorized that Jon Snow warged into Ghost right before he died, right? So the last words he says is Ghost.
Yep.
The intro to A Dance of Dragons is about a warging wildling, right? So it's kind of just setting up the warging and after you die, like being inside of an animal, right?
Yo.
I think Jon's going to be in Ghost for sure, right? But I have a theory that the only way, or maybe not theory, maybe it's just my kind of a wet dream here, the only way I want to see Jon back somehow is in some way, either with Jon's body or Stannis' body, Melisandre sacrifices Shireen to then bring back either Jon into Stannis' body or Stannis' soul into Jon's body, and then Jon's just stuck in Ghost. Maybe we do a Freaky Friday and they go into both, right? So they just like switch roles there for a little bit, which I don't know if would be the best because I love Stannis, and Stannis as Jon Snow.
I like this idea. I like this idea of Stannis in Jon Snow's body, and then you have Jon Snow as like this lassie-aware like dog, like his little sidekick companion.
Yes.
I like that. I like that dynamic. It's pretty good.
Again, I'd rather have just Stannis be in his own body, but if you have to bring Jon back, that's the way I would like him to be. But
dude.
also, like, the whole idea, Jon Snow also gets visions of, you know, he's down in the crypts, and the Starks are like, you don't belong down here. And I don't think in any way it's because he's a bastard, or, he's a Targaryen. I think it's because he's a furry, and he's actually just way into being a dog, and I think that'll be confirmed in the Winds of Winter, hopefully, because George has been directing us, or sending us direct messages this whole entire time.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, there's going to be some kind of bestiality going on. Like, there's no doubt about that. Like, it could even tie back to, what I was saying about Jon becoming a white, right? Like, he becomes a white, so he's kind of mindless, and, like, Melisandre is there, or maybe Catelyn, both. Maybe Catelyn's kind of half dead, so maybe she'll kind of have, like, this unspoken agreement, like a unspoken communication ability, right? Like, everybody's seeing the telepathy tapes, right? Like, maybe it's just severely autistic individuals, right? And, like, basically communicates with this white Jon and says, like, I need you to do something. Come over here. And then at the same time, she's also communicating with Ghost Jon, the real Jon. The Ghost Jon takes her from behind. The white Jon takes her from the front. So they're basically Eiffel Towering her. And this is like a ceremony. Melisandre is there, lights the fire, and the culmination of it all results in, I don't know, maybe like a big mutated version of all four of them. Or maybe it's just Jon returning in his most beautiful prime form, the Grey King. That's my most simple theory on it.
What I don't want to happen is Jon Snow comes back early on in Winds as well, because it does feel like he comes back so quickly in the Game of Thrones series, right? If you're binge watching the series, he dies and then immediately, like, 2 or 3 episodes, right? That's not even that long of time if you're binge watching it. Now, when it originally came out, we had to wait like a year, right, for Jon to come back. But it's going to be very... Even though, like, I guess people would be like, we've been waiting for Jon to come back for, 14 years?
Yeah, but not really, though, right?
But, yeah, come on, guys.
You're right. It's not going to feel right. It's like, if anybody's seen the new Daredevil series, okay? Like, you know what? I'll admit, it's better than I thought it was going to be. Way better than I thought it was going to be. I had zero expectations for it. But if you went from watching seasons 1, 2, and 3 of Netflix Daredevil, and then you went straight to Daredevil Born Again, because I think that should be the intent, right? You're not going to watch all the trash in between.
Yeah.
It takes 3 seasons basically to truly untangle Wilson Fisk's web. And he finally does it and puts him in prison. Like, I finally have exposed this guy for sure. Like, he is a criminal mastermind and he is put away. And that was like the climax, like the conclusion of season 3 of Daredevil.
WilsonFullyExposed.com.
Yeah, Wilson Fully Exposed Fisk. And now episode 1 of this new series, not only is Wilson Fisk out of jail, spoiler alert, all right, he's out of jail, he is somehow gained the trust of the entire public, and he is now mayor of New York. Like, in 1 episode's time, it took 3 seasons to take him down, and the next episode, completely redeemed, has full empire back, and is the mayor of New York. That's the kind of thing we don't want. It feels completely non-compelling. The rest of the show could seem perfect, and it could be perfect, but it's just that little stain on it would be terrible. Let me ask you this question. If Stannis does possess Jon's body, what are the chances that he shaves his fucking head?
Oh, dude, he's like, my head's on fire. Oh, there's so much heat. Yeah, he has to shave his head.
Yes.
Because people that are bald are usually successful in Game of Thrones, and I won't hear anything about it like, oh, Janos Slynt was bald, and Tywin was bald, and they all died. Shut up. Shut up. Well, also, speaking of Janos Slynt, why do we want Jon back if he can't utilize one of the most well-connected members in the Night's Watch down in King's Landing? You know how many friends he has down in King's Landing, Janos Slynt?
Yeah, a lot.
And Jon was able to utilize that? He has many friends.
I can't stop thinking about Bald John, by the way. I can't stop thinking about him.
Well, hold on. Maybe we'll just pause the video here real quick while we're recording. You can just finish your thoughts.
And then the wolf that Jon is actually possessing, he grows out his hair like human Jon. There we go. That's what I want to see.
Well, you were talking about Daredevil and the kind of abrasive. I mean, he went from jail to mayor, which feels like in such a breakneck speed.
One episode.
Even in a book, I feel like George needs to extend this out even further than just Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring. It seems like he needs to add even another book on top of that, because I don't want Jon to somehow come back from the dead and then become king in the North and take Winterfell all in this one book. Don't you feel like that's like a lot happening in that one book? He comes back, he rallies, he takes it. I mean, I guess if by the end of it, if he gets resurrected right away, it might seem like, okay, cool, that he was able to do that. I don't know. It just seems like a lot happening right there. And then on top of it, you got to bring in Sansa and Arya over there. I don't know. As I'm thinking about it, it's like these books he needs to be pumping out way more books. George, what are you doing, my guy?
I mean, I agree with that, but I think there's an easier solution and one that I would actually prefer because, again, we're so tainted by the show. As like far of deviance as they can make from it, it'd be optimal in my opinion. Even if it like out of left field, like even if it seems like he's trying to subvert, like kind of Ryan Johnson style, even if it seems like that, I think it'd be a better decision. And this is a spoiler alert for like a future video that I want to do as well, because I almost feel more passionately about this death that I want over Jon's. But it would be this. I don't think he would need more than 2 books if he just straight up killed both Dany and Jon, because that is 2 huge players, huge pieces of the puzzle that are just now completely off the table. And if you really wanted to go hard too, because the question is then what happens with the dragons, right? And this would be the biggest subversion of all time, because we all think there's going to be like an Aegon the Conqueror reference, right? Like the 3 dragons come back over or whatever. This would be like the ultimate Red Wedding moment. Dany dies in Meereen, and then the dragons just like fly off. I wouldn't have a problem with that. The dragons are my least favorite part about this universe. Like, they are the least cool part about this universe to me, even less cool than the others. The others are enigmatic. I kind of like them. What I don't like is these nuclear warheads that Dany has, these cheat codes. What do you do then? It's completely out in the open, but it makes the story actually a lot simpler. You know what I mean? They're like a smaller scale, I guess.
If anything, you'll just feel that the Dany chapters are such a waste of time. They already feel like a waste of time as they are. But if she just dies over there, I think that's... I don't know. I think George needs to bring over at least the dragons and the Chica. Imagine if she brought over the dragons and then she dies. Now you have these 3 dragons without a rider. Now it's kind of like everyone needs to jump into the middle, kind of like the Joker scene where he breaks the pool cues and he's like, we're going to be doing some tryouts here.
Right.
Instead of the pool cues, they're dragons. And now it's like, hey, we're going to see who's going to actually take the Iron Throne here. That'd be interesting, just throwing that in the middle of everything, because
that's true.
At least now her story led up to something to change it. But if she just dies over there, then what happens to Barristan and Victarion? They all just kind of...
I'll give you that. That's true. If she dies, the dragons do need to live on. You're right. That's actually a good point. Maybe not all 3 of them, though. But, I guess if she dies... This is why the young Griff thing is so interesting, too. Because if... I don't know how many videos we fucking say this in, but if Dany comes over, young Griff gets a dragon, like Dany, she's kind of useless now, right? Like the dragons are kind of the only thing about her.
And I don't even know if I want Jon to have a dragon at all. If he comes back as a fire white or whatever, I don't want him to really ride a dragon. I don't know. I'm kind of over dragons. I like them in the time in history where they're big, like the House of Dragon or Aegon's Conquest, even though they're not impressive in Aegon's Conquest because they're literally just cheat codes, like we've said before. I'm trying to think of the most ideal version of Jon, other than Stannis coming back as Jon and Jon in Ghost body. How would I want Jon? He has to be single, like he has to be very narrowly focused on something, kind of like how Catelyn is. And also, he just needs to, because otherwise it doesn't feel cheap. I mean, George has stated that he didn't like when Gandalf came back, Gandalf the White, in the Two Towers, because he felt like he was cheated from the impact of Gandalf's death in the Fellowship. If Jon just comes back, there needs to be consequences. Maybe like, again, Shireen maybe has to be sacrificed in this to actually have him come back. So it's bittersweet in that aspect of it. But I don't want him just to be like, okay, we've sacrificed so much, and then he's just Jon. Also, I'm kind of just ranting about Jon here, but the whole idea that Jon is killed right when he decides to step out of line, even though this whole time he's been kind of supporting the Night's Watch. I wish he would have just kept supporting the Night's Watch, always Night's Watch, and then he gets killed when, even though he's been supporting them this whole time, and he's like, damn, I was trying to do my best, and it still wasn't good enough. Now I'm going to switch my focus because you guys basically showed me that, like, you guys don't care at all. Right. I don't know. Like, I just don't like the idea that he, right before he dies, he makes this kind of change, then he dies, and then it was just going to continue on that change. I kind of want a rebirth. I want a different kind of character coming out.
Even then, what do you have? You just have like a really amoral, morally gray version of Jon Snow, who's like, he, like a guy like Catelyn who would lead the Brotherhood Without Banners or like lead some kind of a mercenary crew. It's like, pretty cool. But we've seen that. we've seen that. There's other mercenary crews that are in the same vein. That's why it has to be something totally different. I feel like it's very difficult to have a compelling Jon resurrected at any point in the plot, no matter how far down the road you go. But if you don't, like you just said, the same goes for Dany. What was it all for, right? Like the payoff seems insignificant. But the only thing is with Jon, if he dies, his payoff, it would feel like you're kind of getting left hanging, but not any more so than you would have been with Robb, because Jon has developed the others and the wildlings and beyond the wall stuff like to such a huge extent. Stannis could just kind of, take up the mantle of the leader of them now, and it could even be one of those things where it's like, you're not Jon Snow. We don't trust your ass, Stannis. Like, why should we trust you? And then he has to earn their trust and stuff. Jon is another character that doesn't need to exist.
Yeah, I'm way more interested in Stannis potentially just carrying on that storyline, and Ramsay's letter was completely false. Or if Jon has to come back, like we said, Stannis goes into his body, right, and he's able to be the Zor Ahai we've always had dreams of. That's the only acceptable way for Jon to come back, in my mind. I guess I can make an exception if Jon comes back, and it's just Jon, it's not Stannis, and he's just a big stinker. Like, he doesn't take, like, literally stinker. Like, he doesn't take showers. He's with the wildlings. He's just like, well, I'm gonna screw things up in the north. We'll see this way to get a load of me. He's just like, dude, this guy's insufferable. And then he just goes around like the Bloody Mummers did in the Riverlands. Like, that's what I want to see if we have to have Jon back.
This is what it is. Okay, this is what it is. They resurrect Jon. He's the Grey King. He only has one purpose. He's distant. He's ethereal. No one knows what he's doing. The White Walkers push past the wall. They're beyond it. He starts marching north. Like, where are you going, Jon? He's like, I have a duty. I have one thing I must do. Goes over to Craster's very keep and gives that dead-ass body the last kiss that he needs. Resurrected. Our boy's back. And guess what? As soon as he comes back to life, every single White Walker hightails it straight back up north because they know not to fuck with this world.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and smash that like button.
Or not. We don't care.